It's week 15. I got score predictions and picks against the spread for every single game this week. Let's break it down. I like the Bucs on Thursday Night Football in Tampa. I know they've been cold, but I'm really banking on them heating up at the right time here, and it's very doable against the Falcons. Season's over. It's been a mess. Nothing to play for. Even when they do play halfway decent, they still lose those games, and some of the time that's two bad teams. Not all the time, but I'm feeling Tampa getting right here. Drake London's been a Bucs killer over the years. He's probably out again while Mike Evans could be back. They just can't fail several third and fourth down attempts like they did last week, and they barely lost while it was a disaster in that situation, and they barely lost. I think they're going to turn around this game. I feel like they win. They could win big here. I like them -4.5 on Thursday Night Football. Browns at Bears on Sunday. I'm going to go Chicago 23-16. Should be a comfortable win for the Bears. I originally had them winning by more, but a couple factors, mainly the weather, could get a little nasty, and both these teams very capable of playing in bad weather, but typically a game like that means more of a defensive game, which results in a little less scoring, maybe a little closer than expected if that's the case, even though I do see a scenario where the Bears win huge. I think they're very capable of that. Another thing, the Bears have kind of played down to competition this year where some of these matchups have been a little closer. The argument against that is they've gotten much better. I feel like the Bears are a much better team right now than they were when they were close with, the Bengals, the Raiders, the Giants, situations like that. They feel much better, so another reason they could win big. Shedeur and the Browns offense took a step up last week, but the defense took a step down. So which Browns defense are we going to get here? A little tricky. Typically, they stop the run pretty well while the Bears run the ball very well, so that should be a pretty interesting matchup. Bears should win this one. Just depends on how much here. I got a 7-point game. Yeah, I wouldn't bet on it just because the weather could be a massive factor, but the Bears are the much better team here. Ravens at Bengals, round 2. The last game was a disaster just on Thanksgiving. Disaster for the Ravens with 5 turnovers, and the Bengals eventually pulled away in that game. The Bengals just look better right now. Plain and simple, they look better than the Ravens. There's more concerns about the Ravens right now, believe it or not. So looking at it that way, maybe you want to go Cincinnati. They're at home. They very well could win the game. Weather could be a factor here. I'm just feeling the Ravens bounce back. I think chances are they're not going to turn the ball over nearly 5 times. They're not going to have a touchback fumble, a disaster. I feel like they because it's an absolute win for them while the Bengals season feels over, the Ravens find a way. You go back and look at that game where they had 5 turnovers. Derrick Henry was running very well. He was averaging 6 yards a carry. He only had 10 carries because they got down by so much because of those turnovers. So if we're going to sit here and say, that most likely they're not going to turn it over nearly that many times, therefore they should be able to run the ball to Derrick Henry more, which anyone could run on the Bengals, and they should control the clock. I think it's going to be a big Derrick Henry. I almost said something else by mistake. I think it's going to be a big Derrick Henry game. They'll control the clock. They'll just pull it off. Keep it in his hands. I can't believe you got to say it, but keep it in his hands, not Lamar's hands, and they pull it off here. Just avoid those turnovers. But, even if they don't turn it over, Cincinnati still has a shot to win. There's just more on the line for Baltimore here. So big Derrick Henry game, 26-23, Baltimore. That's what I got. I think if the weather's a big factor, it being cold, it favors the run game, I think, which, again, favors Baltimore just a little bit here. A huge game in the AFC West. My gut is telling me the Chiefs win, and the Chiefs could win by a fairly decent amount here. That's what my gut's telling me, but there's some logic behind it. The Chargers coming off a short week in a game that went to overtime on top. It felt like one of those games, a sloppy game, by the way, but a game that really wore down these teams that played in that game. So that already puts them at disadvantage. A good spot for the Chiefs. Their offensive line's depleted. It's struggling. It's even more beat up after Pipkins went down. Herbert is playing injured. The Chiefs lost, but their defense, their pass rush looked pretty damn solid. They're going to get after Herbert. Herbert, of course, can still make some splash plays, and the Chiefs defense plays a really good game here. On top of all that, the Chargers have been a different team on the road. They don't feel as solid, even in some wins, but the last time they played on the road, they got destroyed to the Jags. So now they got to go to Kansas City on the short week after playing in overtime in the cold. I just feels like a bad spot for the Chargers, a great spot for the Chiefs, a must-win game for the Chiefs. Even though they've lost some of these games, I feel like they still look like, they don't look like the same team, but they look like they look like a solid team still. At home, must-win game. Defense will play well. I like they started running the ball a little bit more last game. That'll be a factor in this game. The Chargers defense is good, but I feel like you can run the ball on them. I think Hunt and Pacheco have a decent game. the receivers in Kelsey catch the ball a little more consistently in this one. Again, must win, and they do it in this one. They should get healthier on the offensive line, too, because some of those guys had a shot to play last week, and I feel like they can come back. Not Josh Simmons, obviously. He's on IR, but some of those other guys like Trey Smith and Juwan Taylor, super impressive, or super important and impressive when they play. The spot right here for both teams says Chiefs do it. This is where they try to make that playoff run. If they lose this one, I mean, they're screwed, right? A great one in the AFC East, Bills and Patriots. The Patriots beat them earlier in the year at Buffalo, and since then, the Bills have been inconsistent. The Patriots played very good football. Patriots are better than the Bills right now, plain and simple, so that makes you want to go Patriots. My gut's telling me the Bills pull it off. Like the last pick, my gut was telling me the Chiefs win kind of big. I'm a little more confident with the Chiefs pick than this one. This one I still think it could go either way. It's one of maybe the toughest one to pick this week. I want to see if the Bills get some guys back like Bernard and Bosa. That's pretty key. If both those guys are out, then maybe you lean Patriots here. But Patriots a little banged up on the offensive line. Milton Williams been a little banged up. We still wait and see, are they still that same team without Will Campbell, Milton Williams? Now they play a little bit better competition. A must-win, more of a must-win for the Bills. So that's all that what I just said, kind of steering me towards Buffalo. I could see a scenario the Patriots look a little cleaner than Buffalo in this game and maybe outplay them for a bit, and the Bills kind of just pull it off, make that clutch play. Josh Allen makes that clutch play maybe in the closing seconds, and they kick a game-winning field goal. I definitely could see that scenario. It's kind of what I'm leaning with there. So, more so a gut feeling they split. More of a must-win for the Buffalo Bills here. So 26-24 Buffalo is what I got. Commanders at Giants, definitely one of the trickiest games to pick. Right as I was going to record this, it was announced that Jaden Daniels was out. I'm still leaning with the upset. I'm still leaning with the Commanders here, and that line could even go up to 3.5, 4.5. I would like it at that. The money line pick is a little risky, but because the Giants obviously could win this game, maybe they're favored for a reason, but the Commanders have played well under Mariota. The last time he started was the Broncos game. They were pretty even matchup with Denver. So they're going to run the ball fairly well in this game. I feel like Chris Rodriguez has been running the ball well. Mariota's going to run a little more willing to run than Jaden Daniels right now, so that actually could work in their favor against a Giants team that's really struggled to stop the run. The Commanders have struggled to stop the run as well, but is there anything about the Giants' rushing attack, because Dart's running less, right? Is there anything about the Giants' rushing attack or just their playmakers in general that is going to put them over the top here in this game? I think the Commanders have the better weapons. Look at Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel. Again, Chris Rodriguez run the ball pretty well. They have a collection of running backs here. So weather probably going to be a factor. Could be cold, could snow in this game. I originally had a little more scoring. I was also thinking Jaden Daniels was going to play. So right now I'm leaning, again, keep in mind I wasn't full go with Mariota being the starter when making this prediction. But I'm still leaning with the Commanders. 24-20. I just trust them a little bit more. I think that Vikings game could be a little misleading. Well, I think people are going to base things off that game a little too much. The Vikings defense is actually ridiculous. The Giants defense is nowhere near that level. So it immediately makes it a totally different game. But this should be a fun one here. If it wasn't for the weather, I think there'd be a lot more scoring. I think there'd be possibly be a shootout in this game. But should be a close one that can go either way. For right now, leaning Commanders. Raiders at Eagles. The Eagles offense has to figure it out. I mean, the team has to figure the defense is playing well, but they got to get wins, basically, is what I'm saying right now. They got to figure it out. And this is a good opportunity. The Raiders are arguably the worst team in football. It's in Philadelphia. It's going to be cold. Another game that it might snow. So the Eagles got to win this game. So I'm going to go 20-13, but the 11.5 line does seem like a bit. I mean, for multiple reasons. The weather could be a factor. The Eagles' offense just stinks right now. Are they capable of beating anyone by 12 or more points? The Raiders, even though the Eagles' defense is pretty solid, the Raiders should be able to run the ball. It feels like you can run the ball in the Eagles' defense. So I think it's got to be closer to 11.5. I'm tempted to say bet the Raiders plus 11.5 because that just looks too good. But there is a scenario because the Eagles' defense is so good and the Raiders stink that the Raiders score like 6 points, and then the Eagles' offense doesn't have to be good, really, to cover that line, perhaps. So there is that scenario. I'm kind of leaning Raiders plus 11.5, but I like the under because we know the Raiders shouldn't really play enough of a part to get over that 38.5, and the Eagles just don't have enough offense right now. The weather's going to be a factor to keep it under, so I know it's a low total at 38.5, but that game should go under in this one. But I'm going to go Eagles 20, Raiders 13. Jets at Jags. I'm going to go with Jacksonville at home, 27-13. Much better team at home. They're playing really good football right now. Much improved team over the last 4 or so weeks. The Jets are one of the worst teams in the league. They're a little banged up at quarterback. It sure sounds like either one of Tyrod Taylor or Justin Fields will play. If it's Brady Cook, the Jags are going to destroy them by even more than this, and I would say bet the 12.5 because, nothing against Cook. It's going to be tough for the undrafted rookies. So, I have the Jags covering 12.5 either way. I'm just not going to say throw money on that big of a line right here. But at home, they're a different team. If you want to use them as a parlay option, knock that line down. You can go anywhere from 5.5 to 9.5. Feel pretty good about that. But, should be an easy win for Jacksonville. 27-13 is what I got. Cardinals at Texans. The Houston Texans are rolling right now. Best defense in football. I can see the offense continue to improve. That's definitely a possibility as Stroud's only been back for a couple games. This is an interesting one. 9.5 seems like too big of a line because the Cardinals, before last week, the Cardinals have played some decent teams, better than decent teams, pretty tough, and sometimes the Texans' offense doesn't do a ton, so you would think the Niners could cover that 9.5, but Cardinals could be thrown in the towel. It's a little bit of a mess. They might not be able to score much on the Texans, so it makes me a little hesitant. Could the Texans win by 10, 13, somewhere in that range? It's definitely possible, but I'm going to go 24-16. I think Woody Marks could have a pretty solid game. Cardinals run defense starting to let up a little bit. That's not ideal, so that could be a big difference. But I'm confident with the Texans winning the game. Really good football team right now. It feels like a contender out of the AFC. Defense alone could win them this one by a decent amount, and the offense should pitch in a little bit. One of the best games of the week, a top-tier team in the NFC versus a top-tier team in the AFC, Packers at Broncos. I'm leaning Green Bay here. It's a 50-50 game to me. Could go either way. I'm going to go Packers 23-20. It being in Denver, mile high, the altitude being a factor, that alone makes me, maybe I should go Broncos, right? I'm leaning with the Packers for multiple reasons. I do think they are, at the end of the day, now that we're nearing playoff time, maybe the slightly better team. I think the NFC is better than the AFC, so a pretty even team in both conference. I'm going to lean NFC, but I talked about it in the picks video a little bit, that I love what the Packers put on film. It almost helps by showing stuff in their favor because they beat the Bears by airing it downfield, scoring touchdowns on those plays. So teams watch that film and are like, we got to back up. We got to worry about this. They got speed. Love could air it out, especially on crucial third downs. A lot, third and short, they're not afraid to just sling it. Even fourth and short, sling it downfield. So teams got to worry about that. They got to back up a little bit, but they easily can just pound the ball with Jacobs. And the Broncos, I love their defense. But kind of sticking in my mind is that Commanders game. They let Chris Rodriguez be, out physical them a little bit. They were struggling to tackle him. Could that be the case here? I'm not really worried about the defense, though. It's going to be a defensive game. It's just which offense can make that extra explosive play. And the Broncos offense is, even though they're winning, they're tough to fully trust in a game like that. So I'm going to lean with the Packers, but it can go either way. I'm not going to say bet the Packers minus 2.5. I'm not going to say bet the Packers money line because, again, it's a 50-50 game. But if you want a parlay option, I feel like the Packers plus 3.5, that feels almost like a lock because the Broncos could win this game. If the Packers lose this game, you think it would have to stay close because they're a really good team. They typically keep it close, but the Broncos games, even when they win, they're always close, right? They always seem to be a little closer. A little bit more of a tougher task for the Broncos. They did well against the Chiefs, but some of the easier teams they kind of just got by. So this would be a pretty good game to learn a little bit about these teams at this time of the year. I'm leaning Green Bay. Lions at Rams. Could be a fun offensive game. That's what I'm predicting. I have LA winning 34-26 here in this one. I'll take a shot on the Rams over. I know it's high at 30.5, but I think they go over that because the Lions defense, hasn't been the greatest. They play good here and there. They also been really banged up. Now they're even more banged up. Not having Brian Branch, a safety that can play in the slot in the box area in a game like this going against, Puka is the matchup that they really could take advantage of here, but both running backs are going off right now as well. The Lions typically stop the run fairly well, but Davante Adams going against this Lions defense, they've been pretty predictable in their man coverage. The Rams should have a day offensively. I mean, the amount of points they put up on the Cardinals. Cardinals defense is pretty decent too. Rams at home. Lions been a little inconsistent. For the Lions offense, it's a little tricky to predict because one week they're back. It's that elite Lions offense. And the next week it's like, oh my God, it's underwhelming. They can't pass protect. The play calling's not that great. The decision making's not that great. So it seems like they're back and forth, back and forth. Rams defense is pretty decent. They haven't played the greatest offensive teams recently. They let the Panthers score a little bit on them. So you could kind of argue both sides there. The Lions probably could run it up a little bit. It's definitely a possibility, but they're so inconsistent. They're on the road. They're playing a good defense. So a little all over the place there. I got the Rams winning 34-26. I'm kind of confident because the Brian Branch injury, the Lions inconsistent. The Rams offense should have a day, especially through the air in this game. I'm confident with them winning this one at home. If this is in Detroit, it may be a little tricky here, but this could be a fun one here. It feels like a must-win for both teams. The Rams chasing to win that division, get that 1 seed. The Lions trying to make the playoffs. They still have a shot at their division as well. Panthers-Saints, round 2. The Saints beat them 17-7 just a few weeks ago. Since then, the Panthers beat the Rams, and they've had a bye. So the Panthers are one of the toughest teams to predict. Even though I did call some of their upset wins earlier in the year, I certainly did not call the Rams game. They were beat up, but they still beat the Rams. But they're so tricky to predict because one week they look really good. Like, that's a playoff team. And one week they're like, no, they're terrible. Like, what was that? So what are we going to get here? The Saints defense is playing pretty decent football. It's kind of going unnoticed right now. They're playing good football. They shut down, for the most part, the Bucs on 3rd and 4th down. That was a crucial part of that game last week. Shuck played well against the Panthers. He played well last week, so that could be a factor here. I'm just going to trust the Panthers split with the Saints here. They play better football coming off the bye. It'd be a total Panthers move to kind of shit the bed in this game, though, but I feel like they're going to win. They're going to do it. I trust them a little more. The Saints have been a little sloppy than last week, not so much. Then could they go back to being sloppy? These teams are tough to predict. You try to predict them to win, and then they don't look like themselves, or the opposite, and then they look great, so it's a little weird. I think another good parlay option, Panthers plus 3.5. If they do lose this game, I feel like it's got to be tight. It's got to be tight, but I do like them to win this one, 23-17. Titans at Niners. The Titans are playing better football right now. They really are. The young players on offense, specifically led by Cam Ward, they're playing pretty good football. Tony Pollard went off last week against an elite run defense that the Niners couldn't run on that Browns defense just a couple weeks ago. So maybe the Titans are turning the corner here, and maybe they're going to be a little sneaky. There's a scenario where they can make it kind of close. I'm not really going to trust it, though. The Niners are off the bye, which they needed that bye. It's a really good football team. I think they'll be effective on the ground, through the air. The defense has been balling out better than ever the last few weeks. As they gotten, believe it or not, a little bit healthier, they've been playing pretty good football. So I'm going to take the Niners in this one. There's a scenario where it could be a little closer than expected, but in San Fran here, I think a good parlay option, dropping that line down to 5.5, so you can pair that with some of the other parlay options we've had in this video. Maybe the most interesting game of the week. All eyes will be on this game because Phillip Rivers may be playing quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, and it's not tough to predict it straight up right now. I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks no matter what, but it's very tough to predict it against the spread and then predicting a score right now because, well, one, we don't know who's playing quarterback. For right now, Phillip Rivers still on the practice squad. They're probably going to see how he does. 44-year-old does in practice this week. But yeah, who's playing quarterback? How's Rivers going to be? So it's a little bit tough to predict against the spread and the score. There is a scenario that, like, I don't know what to expect. You don't know what to expect from Phillip Rivers or the Colts. The Seahawks don't know what to expect, even though it's a top-tier defense. They just don't know how to game plan for just a totally different look. Even I know Riley Leonard's beat up, but if he is able to go and they practice some plays for him, this week, a lot of different stuff, a lot of read option, a lot of option type plays, stuff that just isn't on film. So there is a scenario where the Seahawks are completely fooled by what the Colts show them. And I actually think that'll be the case where they just don't know what's coming. That doesn't mean they won't be able to stop it, though. It's a really good defense that's very well coached at the same time. So I think they'll be able to do enough. I trust them in this game. Seahawks offense has been a little inconsistent recently. It was like, borderline elite earlier in the year. So maybe the Colts kind of could force some field goals here. 13.5 line seems a little much, but if it's a banged up Riley Leonard out there, I think I might have to change to the Seahawks covering. That's tough though. It's a lot of points, and it could end up being both defenses playing well in this game. So I'm going to go 26-16 for now. All eyes will be on Phillip Rivers if he plays. Seattle should take care of business on this game. I'm not betting on anything with this game though. Vikings at Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. And while everyone is probably picking the Cowboys, though, at first glance, looking at this matchup, I mean, the Vikings defense really is playing elite right now. It feels like a top 3 defense right now. It's playing out of its mind. If you didn't watch the Seattle game, it actually played out of its mind in that game. The offense just absolutely blew it with an undrafted rookie quarterback. But the defense is playing incredible. So if they can play defense, maybe create some turnovers as the Cowboys turn it over and limit the Cowboys from scoring their normal amount of points, that works, right? And it feels like anyone could score some points on the Cowboys. You could say the matchup maybe actually favors Minnesota. I have a big problem. Well, that kind of, it makes sense, right? There's logic behind what I just said, but I kind of have a problem with it. And the problem is, this is Sunday Night Football in Dallas. That's my biggest problem. I'm a big Vikings fan. I've watched them for my whole life, and any Vikings fans out there can agree with me. No matter who's the coach, no matter who's on the team, they piss their pants. They piss down their legs in primetime football. And the Cowboys at home they're a different animal at home. The defense kind of came back down to earth last week, so it stinks. But, I mean, they played Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown when they probably didn't expect to play St. Brown last week. Now they're playing, I know the Vikings offense played pretty good last week, but they're playing J.J. McCarthy, a banged-up offensive line, even though it's actually kind of healthy right now. I'm trusting the Cowboys. I'm going to say bet 5.5 on that line dropped down from 6 to 5.5. I like it that much more. The Cowboys, the Vikings defense is legit. I don't know. It's probably not going to look like their normal selves here because it's a primetime game in Dallas, and the Vikings offense might not do them a ton of favors, even though it's the Cowboys defense. So it's a primetime Vikings game in Dallas. Cowboys win 27-17. They cover that 5.5. I could see a scenario. I mean, there is a scenario where the Vikings defense just continues to play elite and they make this a game, right? But there's a scenario where the Cowboys can just absolutely destroy them. I mean, the last primetime game the Vikings played was the Chargers, and they got absolutely embarrassed against the Chargers in that game in LA. Now they're in Dallas. So my gut's telling me the Cowboys win, and they might win by more than what that line shows. Monday Night Football, it's a big one. These teams are fighting to get in the playoffs. The Steelers are fighting to not just that, but to win their division to make it a little easier, get a top 4 seed. The Dolphins are heating up. They're on a win streak right now, and their defense is playing pretty well. Offense has explosive moments led by Achane. A little banged up. Sounds like he should be able to play in a game like this. Steelers, they've been cold, but they picked it up last week. They outplayed the Ravens. They still almost blew the game, but they got a big win. But you're still a little iffy about the Steelers recently, while vibes are kind of up on the Dolphins. But I'm going with Pittsburgh here at home on Monday night in the cold. Weather's going to be a factor. I don't want to completely doubt the Dolphins in the cold. It's been a thing in the past. They played well last week, but it's a little different. Monday night in Pittsburgh, it's a little different. So I do think that is a factor here. I don't think they're going to get their ass kicked because of it or anything like that. I think it's a factor. It should be a defensive game. The Dolphins almost feel better on defense than offense right here. I'm monitoring DK Metcalf, though. If he can't play, that's pretty tough. The Steelers don't have much of an answer on offense, right, if that's the case. So we might have to rethink the pick here if he can't play, but he's got until Monday night. But Pittsburgh at home, they get the crowd, they get the momentum. In the cold, that's a major factor. Rodgers talked about the Steelers had they're by far their best week of practice last week. They beat the Ravens. They outplayed them on both sides of the ball. That's good. It's a good sign going forward here. I think one of my favorite picks of the week. I like the Chiefs minus 4.5, but the under 42.5 here. We're looking ahead all the way to next Monday, but weather certainly could be a factor. It's going to be cold. We know that. It looks like it could snow. I think the Dolphins are better on defense right now than offense. How's the offense going to be in the cold? Steelers' offense isn't the most explosive. Is it going to be that much more explosive in the cold? Dolphins' defense is playing good. I could see Watt in that pass rush getting after Tua. This should be this is like the maximum I was going to have it in terms of score. I thought about 17-13, so 42.5 seems like a bit. I think that line's going to drop as we get closer in the weather, if the weather shapes up how I'm looking at it right now. So I like the under. Just because of the weather factor, I like the Steelers to win this game, so I like that money line as well. But I really like the under as we sit today. So give me Pittsburgh 20-16. But that'll do it for the Week 15 picks. A lot of good ones this week, and it seems like weather will be a factor, as we talked about in several of these games. So it should be pretty interesting this week. But that'll do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.